Happy Friday, mid-February 2022. Glenn Stein, Realty Executives here, broker owner. Some of you know my history, but some of my background is I've been a broker since 2004 and started Realty Executives in the Villages late 2004. I've been here in this particular community, both in Ocala and the Villages for the last, we've been a broker, been open 18 years now. It's going to be 18 in the fall. So we're actually located on 466. We have one location there. We have a small location in Wildwood and some future growth plans soon. So I'd be interested to see if you guys know where we're located. If you've been to our office, let me know. It'd be kind of interesting to know that. I think some of you have. Also, really good plans for the rest of this year. And a lot of the things that I'm seeing in the marketplace right now related to pricing. We're going to talk about pricing. We're going to talk about, is there a higher ceiling in this marketplace? Can the prices go up? What are we seeing on inventory right now? We're going to see what's on the market right now. We're going to take a look at those things today. So let's begin with what's on the market right now. And I believe we've got lower 80s as far as how many properties are on the market right at the moment. So that's something that we're going to take a look at right now. I'm going to show you what is on the market. This could be fun and interesting. So let's see, we're going to look at this. So right now we're looking at 81 properties on the marketplace right now in the Villages. That's what we're seeing. And, this is obviously MLS. This is when we're doing this live, so you know exactly what we're looking at here is real life. So hopefully you guys can see this. I know some people have complained in the past they couldn't see it. What we're seeing here is, the lowest price property, 174.9 in the historic section. And if we took a look at it, this is the first segment of properties, the first 25 properties, the lowest 25 properties in the Villages. There's 81 on the market right now. And we look at, mobile homes. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, looks like about five homes that are mobile homes that are in that range, under 300,000, under 200. There's only 3, 4, 5 homes, period. One that's actually a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, a smaller property. Let's look at that. That's very interesting to me. Okay, let's take a look at let me exit full screen and be able to actually make some changes to this. Let's look at what that property is. One on Mark Drive. Saying it's not a mobile home. Actually, it looks like it is. It's saying it's single family. It really is actually a mobile home. So that's something you have to watch out for. Make sure that looks like this is actually an REO property, is a foreclosure property. So that kind of explains why we're seeing some inaccuracies. Actually, something recently that we've seen, make sure when you're buying a property, a lot of people will send you the MLS sheet, or you might get a tangible MLS sheet, which is what you're looking at here. Make sure that it is, verified. So sometimes people make mistakes. What you have to know about these types of properties, any type of property on MLS, this is deemed to be accurate. It's deemed to be accurate, but it's not guaranteed. So if there's something in here that says, okay, well, like in this case, it says it's single family, not a mobile home. That doesn't mean that after closing that, they said it was a single family and it really wasn't. So I'm going to file a lawsuit. Verify things when you're buying stuff. Don't base your information on this sheet. This is sometimes it's, I think 99% of the time, if there's a mistake here, it's done by accident. It's just an error. People make mistakes. They overlook something. We try to be as accurate as possible as realtors, but sometimes there's going to be mistakes. Sometimes the owner will tell us that there's something that is guaranteed. They say, yes, this is a new roof or new air conditioning, and it turns out it's not. We're just basing our information on what the owner says, and sometimes we're inputting things incorrectly. Like in this case, it's not our company, by the way, it's a different company, so I don't want to call them out too much. But in this case, they've made a mistake here. And, I can actually call, there's like an MLS police and tell them to correct it. And it's probably something I'll do. Don't like doing that because I think it's, it's unless it's something that would help the cause. And I think it would be in this case. So make note of that. Make sure that when you're shopping for property that you're getting good information, and don't just look at the sheet. In fact, I'm involved in a purchase right now where the information is off. So just keep that in mind, right? You just got to do your own research, or have the realtor do some additional research. Don't take everything that you're seeing here as gospel on these sheets. That's my point here. Just like we're seeing in this case. So anyway, that's a mobile home. So that's actually 6 homes in that range. You're seeing that the floor has risen on properties, like this one in Fernando Drive, as a single family residence. It's actually, I think, a pretty good deal. Two bedroom, 1 bath. This is actually looks like a courtyard villa for 224.9. Looks like a pretty darn good price. That shouldn't last long on that for sure. Okay, that one's listed by Remax. One of the things I think that's really important is also choosing one of the things I've realized in my 18 years of being a broker is who you work with really does matter, and how do you determine who you're going to work with. Company, obviously brand awareness. We're the #1 company who've sold the most amount of homes in the Villages on the MLS side than anywhere else, and than anybody else by far, by the way. But that's a starting point. But really interviewing the agent either on the buyer side or the seller side, find out what how much do they know about the marketplace. I think it's really important. Do they know their numbers? So this is actually going to be another courtyard villa for under 300,000. It's a 2 bedroom, 2 bath in Santiago. That tells you what's going on there. And under 300,000, there's a handful. This looks like 10 properties. Under 300, between 300 and 365, you have another 15 properties. And then moving up from there, you're looking at just a handful of properties that go up to 400, and then quite a bit. You're looking at about 16, 17 properties all the way up to 500. And then after that, you're looking at, looks like about 30 properties over 500,000, which is pretty significant. I mean, the ceiling, as you can tell, has really risen. And for the folks that have been watching this channel, looking at the inventory levels, they've been pretty consistent. Looking at 81 properties right now on the market. Let me go back a second and let's look at the over $1 million mark. We're seeing a handful. Let's see, 6 properties, 7, 8, 9. So 9 properties over $1 million, one at 989. What I'd like to look at, let me do a search for, let's take a look at pending properties. The amount of pending properties on the market right now, also an indicator. Total pending under contract, and that is 300, looks like 318. That's what we're looking at here. I think that's 318. 218 rather, 218 properties rather, that are now under contract. Okay, so that says something too. Okay, let's look at how many properties now. Let's look at, you got 218 properties that are under contract, pretty significant. 81 properties that are active. Now let's take a look at price range. So let's look at the $1 million mark and over. And there's one property, looks like there's one property that is now over $1 million that's pending. Okay. Let's look at closed over the last 6 months. And there's 10 properties that have closed in that $1 million mark. So that's like 1.5 per month. That tells you what's going on there. Let's look at sold. Let's look at sold properties that with no price range attached to it. And that is, we're looking at the last 6 months, 907 properties, so an average of 150 a month. That's a little bit, that's slightly off of last year's pace, by the way. We had like over 2,400 homes MLS that sold. 907, that would give us about 1,800 homes for the year, which is still would be probably the second largest volume number in MLS Villages history. So still having a strong year so far. And my point is, I'm looking at these numbers, and we're getting a lot of people ask questions. And if you have questions, please leave them in the chat section. I haven't forgotten that a couple of you have asked about insurance. In fact, I'm making a note here. In the very near future, I want to have an insurance agent come on and answer, the most popular questions. So leave those questions. If you have any questions about insurance, put that in the chat function, and I'll make sure we cover that, because you may not be there when we do it live. Okay. So that's definitely a thing. But let's look at the active properties again. I want to go back to active, and I want to show you why I think that there is still some ceiling in this marketplace. A lot of people are thinking, okay, well, prices have gone up, we're going to see a market crash. I think, based on our inventory, because we're tracking this every single week, still stuck at 81 properties. We're in the middle of February, middle of season. Our demand is pretty high right now. Okay. Still pretty high. It's not as high as what it was in June, July last year, but it's still pretty high, meaning that there's still opportunity for prices to go up. So if you buy today, I still feel like you're buying not at the peak. I don't feel like we're at the peak in pricing, by the way. So that's, and the reason why I say that is that we're looking at, look, there's not much under 3. Over 3, there's only a handful of properties. I don't expect inventory levels to increase dramatically. And it's interesting because I had this conversation with my realtors a week ago. And one thing that we talked about is, there's more ceiling to the marketplace, but also what we're seeing is, what are those situations where, what's the situation we would have to see for inventory to go up, and we would have to see the inverse of what we saw back last year, which means we would have to see a market crash or severe market correction for inventories to grow up to that level. So, and hopefully we don't see that. So I still see inventory being light, although it may grow a little bit later on this year if interest rates go up, which is what they're anticipating, because now they're in the lower 4s. So Skip is asking me, he lives in Massachusetts. I'm purchasing a home. Is there other fees associated with the transaction? So if you bought a home for $400,000, what's the cost of all that out the door? So a couple of things. When you're buying a home in the villages, if you're using financing, first of all, if you're using financing, you're going to have the regular financing costs. So whatever it costs to actually use a mortgage, whatever the bank or the mortgage company is going to charge you. If so, put that aside, right? That depends on credit and how much you're bringing down and the institution you use. Let's assume that you're going to pay cash. So what are those costs? So in the contract, in the Florida contract, you have a couple of options. Mostly the way it goes, most of the time here in our area, 99% of the time, you do not have to pay for title insurance. So, no finance, as in you're not financing, or you're going to use financing. Let me know, Skip. But if you're using cash, title is typically paid by the seller. Seller is also responsible for doc stamps on the deed, which is the state transfer tax, 70 cents on the 100, and of course commission. Right? When we're doing a net sheet, that's how it runs. So thank you for that. So cash. So in this case, you don't have to worry about doc stamps on the deed because that's a seller fee. That's their closing cost typically. Title insurance, typically, although in the Florida state contract, there is an option of the buyer picking and paying for title. Mostly in our areas like in South Florida, typically the buyer will pay for title. Or if you're buying straight from the villages and you're buying new construction, then new construction, there will be, you'll have to pay for title as a buyer. Most builders won't pay for title. They'll pass that fee over to the buyer. But if you're buying resale, which is what we deal with on the, we're not part of the villages, by the way. We are in the villages, the town, the metro, but we're not part of the villages developer arm. We are our own independent company that's been here for 18 years. A lot of people don't realize that. A lot of people think that we can't even do business here. Like, oh, how do you compete in the villages? Well, we do it like normal like normal real estate in normal places around the country, although there's nothing like the Villages. But with cash, the only other fees will be a Villages fee of, you're getting your ID. You're supposed to get, by the way, supposed to get keys, that type of thing. There's going to be a Village fee, a couple $100 that you're going to have to pay just to make sure you get your IDs and cards and pass, gate card and all that kind of stuff. But outside of that, the only thing you have to worry about is there might be, depending on which title company you're working with, there'll be some small title company fee. Sometimes they charge that to buyers with cash, and out the door under $1,000 to answer your question for sure. Should not be more than 1,000. So make sure that you understand that. Some people decide that they want to buy for sale by owner. I think that's always a little bit tricky. You think you're saving money. You may be saving money, but you better do your research and maybe hire an agent to work with you to make sure that you got the right inspectors, you've got the right contract, you're not paying for things that you shouldn't be paying for, that type of thing. So definitely watch out for that. Okay. So yes, so fees under, you're welcome. Absolutely. If you have further questions, connect with me at 352-572-3796. You can also text me 352-572-3796. Happy to answer any questions if you need assistance. So Ann is also asking, do they prorate property taxes? So what happens, like in Skip's case, let's say he buys a place, he puts in a contract tomorrow, and he closes at the end of March, right? At the end of March. So what happens is, in this case, Skip would actually get money at closing from the seller from January 1 all the way through the end of March. So I don't know how many days that would be, but let's say, what do we talk about? 3 months. So we're talking about 1/4 of the taxes would be paid, credited to Skip. He would get 3 months worth of taxes from the seller for 2022. And why is that? Why is that? Is that because taxes are paid in arrears in the state of Florida. In other words, Skip will get 3 months worth of taxes from the seller when he closes, and that'll be in the closing statement, in the ALTA, they call an ALTA closing statement from the title company, and which will hold as escrow and all that type of stuff, which we can talk about at some point, the whole process. But what would happen in that case, he would get 3 months of taxes. And then come October, November, when he gets a tax bill, and he has to remember this, when he gets a tax bill, he has to remember that he's going to have to pay for the whole thing, the whole year 2022 of taxes. He has to remember that he got credited for the first 3 months, because he's like, wait a second, why am I paying for the whole year? I bought my place in March. Why am I paying for it? Well, because you got the first 3 months credited to you, because you're going to see a bill in October for the whole year's worth of taxes 2022, and you have up until April the following year to pay for them without penalty. Okay. Now in Florida, let's dive into it. That's another rabbit hole we can get into. And so hopefully, Ann, I asked that question. So one of the things that does happen in Florida is that sometimes people forget to pay their taxes, or they can't afford their taxes. Well, typically what happens in Florida is if you don't pay your taxes, the county has to get their money, the state has to get their money, and they will get their money. And how they get their money is that they'll sell your debt to an investor, so tax deed certificate, and somebody will pay for that debt for you. So the county has to run on tax money, state has to run on their tax money, so they'll get their money. What happens is that that person who buys that debt from the county typically has a couple of years before they can call it due, and you will pay penalties along the way for being late. And at that point, they could actually force your home into a tax deed auction and force tax certificate auction and force you to sell your home, right? They could actually basically force it to auction and own your home after a couple of years for not paying taxes. So that's a thing in Florida, but it takes a couple of years. You'll be notified and that type of thing. So just don't forget to pay your taxes. The other thing I want to bring up, which makes me think about this, is For many of you, if you bought your home, we're actually approaching, this is a perfect time to bring this up. If you bought your home last year and you are homesteaded, meaning that you are going to, and you can prove that you've got a Florida license, you're going to be living here 6 months and a day or more, full-time resident, that's how you define that. If that's the case and you bought it last year, make sure that you file for your homestead exemption. And you have up until March 1st. So file for homestead exemption. There's a savings there. Okay. And it's pretty significant depending on the home. There's a lot of different things there, but significant savings there. Make sure you file for homestead exemption. Very, very important. Okay. So, and you have up until March 1st to do that if you bought your home last year. Okay. So make sure you do that. So Cindy is asking, are the prorated taxes the seller pays at the rate at the assessment prior to the sale, meaning old assessed value, or taxes at the new higher rate based on the sales price? So they are based on the current value or the current assessment, because homes will be reassessed, and typically this is done right around August. So what happens is that the county reassesses properties in the third quarter of every year. You will get an approximation based on this new assessment in the mail, typically August. And for the folks that live in Florida, you know this. If you don't live in Florida, you're going to see this later on when you do buy here, where it's going to be a statement that looks like a bill, but it's going to say, this is not a bill, do not pay. This is what we're thinking about. We're getting ready to bill you. This is what we're thinking about the new assessment will be. Now, with that in mind, what happens is that you do have a right to contest it. You have like a 30 to 45 day window to actually contest it. If you can bring some sufficient evidence that, wait a second, you're assessing my property too high. Nobody ever contests it if their property's assessed too low. It's only when they're too high. Oh my God, my taxes are way too high. Why? You can contest it. There's that period before it actually becomes a rule, and then you're billed at that point. So prorated taxes are based on what the current rate, what they assessed it at last year and moving forward, not at the new price, because they haven't done it. They haven't gotten it yet. It hasn't been recorded, and they don't even know about it yet. So hopefully that makes sense. And by the way, if you have questions about such things, number one, this is really good stuff to make sure that your realtor broker actually know. Okay. And by the way, there is a difference between a realtor and broker. But make sure that your realtors understand this. When you're vetting realtors, they understand this whole process, because that's a good way to determine whether you should use them or not, I think, right? I think that's a smart thing to do. How knowledgeable they are. Do they understand the marketplace? Do they understand these things? What are my costs? What are my closing costs? Do they know how to point you in the right direction? Do they understand, the tax consequences? Do they understand the prorations? Do they understand which way the market is going? And not just, and I see a lot of this on social, by the way, and I'm sure you guys see the same thing, and I hate it. As an industry, I don't know why I know why we do it. I wish we didn't, which is like we brag about homes selling in 5 minutes, and it really leaves a bad impression. It looks like we're bragging. It looks like it's, this job is so easy that anybody can do it. Anybody can sell their home, which, by the way, my belief is today, which is going to sound like a little bit anti-real estate. I think anybody can sell a home. You can sell your home on your own. Here's the key. Here's the difference. It's not about getting your home sold. It's about getting the most for your home. Doesn't matter what market you're in. Some of you are in Massachusetts, like Skip. Some of you are in different markets. And it's not about getting your home sold today. That's not the challenge. It's about getting the most for your home, maximizing the value, and getting as much exposure. That's where you need a realtor, to expose your home to the most amount of buyers so you can get more money. Now, on the flip side, on the buying side, because on the buying side, as a seller, you want the most amount of money. As a buyer, you want to get the best deal possible. Well, guess what? In today's marketplace, almost in every marketplace, and I talk to a lot of realtors around the country, Alaska, New York, California, Phoenix, Arizona, Florida, obviously. And right now, it's not about getting the best value, best lowest price on a home when you're buying. It's about actually winning. When you're competing against 2 to 3, sometimes 14, 15, 50, 70 buyers in certain markets. In our market, it's really maybe one or two people, usually what you're competing against normally. There's some outliers to that. Is getting yourself in the position to win the bid. Win the bid. It's not always about overpaying, which, by the way, when you're buying, you are always overpaying. You're the highest bidder. You have to be the highest bidder, or else you're not going to win. Now, sometimes that's price. Sometimes that's not always about price. Sometimes that's giving the seller what they need, whether it's maybe it's a post occupancy. Maybe you're going to allow the seller to stay because that's what they need. That's going to give you an edge. Maybe it's going to be removing any kind of appraisal contingencies. Maybe it's a shorter closing period. Maybe it's a longer closing period. Maybe you have to put together a great escalation clause, which is going to cause you to win. And I covered that a couple of videos, actually, probably about 6 months ago. You may want to see that. So escalation clauses in Florida. So there's a lot of things. Make sure that your agent, your realtor, by the way, there's a difference between agent and realtor here in the Villages, right? Realtors, we belong to the National Association of Realtors. The agents, the salespeople, they are licensed like us, but they don't belong to the NAR, and they just have to abide by state rules and not necessarily local rules. There is a big difference there. So I've done that before too, but I can dive into that at some point down the road. So that gives you an idea. I really wanted the big idea, the big thing I want to tell you is, and this is what I'm seeing in our marketplace today, is that there's still ceiling to this marketplace. Some people are like, boo. Some people are like, yay. There's always like half the people, the sellers are super happy. Buyers are like, oh no, you're kidding me. There's no way. How could they go up even higher? They were at 200,000 before, now they're at 300,000. Well, with the demand that we're seeing, it indicates that inventory will probably stay in place. Properties are coming on the market all the time. And there's equal demand taking away that inventory. So coming on the market and leaving. I did that research recently, and days on market, like 4 or 5 days on market, which is really low, meaning homes are coming on the market and they're leaving the market. That's why we're not seeing a large accumulation effect. And that's why if you look at pretty much what I've been covering for the last 18 months, especially the last 6 months, inventory hasn't really grown or decreased either way. Like it's been pretty stable over the last 6 months. A little bit of fluctuation, maybe upper 60s, maybe upper 80s, but mostly in between that mark. Okay. So thank you for watching. Please subscribe. And if you have questions, please let us know. We're experts here. I don't know much about anything. I know a lot about this. This is pretty much all I know. And my family, you can see my family in the background there on the other side. Caricature picture. That's me with a little bit more hair, I think. So let me know if you have questions. You know where to find me. Buy Sell the Villas is our website. So if you're looking around and you want to know what's going on buyer-wise, this is the place. Okay. All right. Happy Friday, everybody. Take care.